Right. Dave Tadlock made this years ago, he started posting this on the internet. It's pretty funny because that was always my saying was like, well, there you have it. No matter what situation, it was, there you have it. Okay, here's my first and only train set. 1964 Christmas, Lakewood, California. It was a figure eight, depth as the diamond, actually expanded the track to include electric switches and a lot more cars, and put my white mouse in the caboose, and he didn't really like that much. And anyway,
I like the Sing-O-Matic.
my father, he started off at North American Rockwell, North American Aviation Space Division. 1955 he got hired. He and my mom moved out to California in a Cessna 140. He had a buddy of his drive his car, a musician friend, was relocating, so he took all his stuff. Anyway, I was born October 8th, 1957. It was the same week that the Sputnik orbited, so I'm an actual space person. But growing up through Lakewood, and then we moved to Mississippi, went through Hurricane Camille, all that heavy stuff. Huntsville was a blast, but wound up back in California again. I remember Knott's Berry Farm from the early '60s. My parents took me there, and saw the steam trains and stuff. And then right after high school, I was out there with Eugene McCaney. I graduated in 1975. I went out there with my friend Eugene McCaney, and here it was nighttime, and here's the 464 was out there. This is off a calendar, but 464 was out there. It was a beautiful sight, and all the lights were on. The steam was steaming. This is a 70-ton locomotive on a 6/10 mile loop. With all flange drivers, great choice. Anyway, so I went up to the guy that night, and I started asking him about the locomotive, and and finally I said, well, in this day and age, how do you get a job working on one of these relics? And he says, well, actually, they're looking for somebody, mechanics helper this summer. And I go, really? So the guy gave me the guy's name and number, and it was Tom Bush, and so got an interview and got hired summer of '76 for $3.75 an hour. Tom Bush was kind of a little interesting guy, but the first day I showed up there, he lines out all his mechanics. There's like a half dozen mechanics there. He lines them all out. It's like, you, okay, and you come with me. And so he took me out back of the shop. There was all these drums. They've been, it looked like the Love Canal. It's like, okay, there's your door wall, there's your, some shovels, get this cleaned up. It's like, it looked like about 3 weeks worth of work to me, but I was back there for about an hour, and he comes back and he goes, all right, come with me. And I didn't realize what it was, but it was a test, like, boy, you're gonna work for me? You're gonna work for me? I mean, it was like the test. So anyway, the 464 left in 1980, but here's me at the throttle. Here's me, I was about 21 years old there. We had a lot of fun at Knott's. It was such a good environment, a bunch of college-age kids trying to earn a keep. But this was a really good one. It's like, these things really cranked me up. Oh my goodness. So anyway, I took this from a lift. Both my babies. Both these engines were built in 1881. They've been reboilered in the mid-teens, and they're still running. The 41 just went to Durango and got shopped and got repaired, and now what they call the 340 now, it is actually there being overhauled, so it's like full circle. But these were my babies. I learned how to bend the pipes and everything on those. I mean, I cut my eye teeth on those engines. It was a lot of fun. Good times. There's myself and my cohort in crime, Pete County. There's our 16-inch self-bend lathe. We had that and a shaper. And there was a machine shop down the down the street, we could, get them to do stuff. But the one real point in my life that mattered to me was in 1978, we hired Ray Johnson, this old, ex-master mechanic off a railroad in Arkansas. He actually worked on the Boulder Dam. Don't ever call it the Hoover Dam. You'd make the hair stand up on the back of his neck. You call it the Hoover Dam for some reason. I don't know if it's politics or what, but you never call it the Hoover Dam. So anyway, he was full of tricks. He actually made this mill and this lathe into a boring mill. I mean, he was always scribbling on his lunch sack. He's like, okay, he come up with the materials. This little big bar of steel. I would, get the stuff for him. He made a plate on the carriage and wound up making a boring bar so we could start, boring things on the lathe. It's pretty ingenious. But anyway, Knott's Berry Farm had a lot of neat equipment. This is taken from the Durango. No, that's the Edmund, sorry. Anyway, and the Goose, Rear Grant Center and stuff. It was pretty neat. But before I left, I got to design this shop. It's got the hydraulic lift in it, and I've been fortunate all my years. I've never had to jack a locomotive up to get it off its drivers. I've always had a pit of some sort, So I know there's workarounds, but I didn't have a pit up at Silverwood. But years later on, I went and visited my buddies. But up in the upper right corner, that's they enshrined my hat. It's got my hire date, my quitting date, 79 to 80, 76 to 89. One of my hats is in there, so people that aren't tourists get to see my hat. Guy on the far left, that's Smiling John Buchanan. He was something else. They combined rights maintenance was big, Cuba, well funded, and so we were originally Ghost Town and Calico Railroad, then there was the cable cars, and so first they blended the cable cars with the railroad, so we were rail maintenance, and then they blended us into the rides maintenance, and so one day we had a pep talk by the manager, and okay, fine, and we come back to the shop. John Buchanan was famous for having coke in the smoke. Goes back, has a coke in the smoke. He takes a big drag off a cigarette. It's like, I don't know what Mark's talking about, but we're team players. We're just on the other team. So anybody in the show of hands, anybody ever work fast food? Fast food. Okay. Well, does 90 miles an hour count? In college, I used to crew this diner. It was hilarious. It was $125 a day. But we go up to typically San Diego, out of Oakland, out of Los Angeles, San Diego, Oakland, Vancouver, Portland. We went all over. It was. And there's me.
That's different. It's clean. Let's stick with it.
But yeah, that was a lot of fun. It's down at San Diego. The place settings were just outrageous. I painted that car in exchange for my mom's passage to Vancouver on one trip. I had to work the trip and pay my way, but actually, with a couple friends, we actually painted that heavyweight. The sister to it is down in San Diego. It's unblemished. This one they made a couple of bedrooms in the back, and Gordon, the owner, he was a school teacher. I don't know how he got involved with private cars, but he took his car down to Mexico once, and they took it down there, and they stopped at a station, and next thing he knows that the guys were up on the roof. They recognized the ice hatches; they weren't locked, and he got his closets iced. But yeah, we've been all over with this. It was a lot of fun. So anyway, Knott's Berry Farm, going on and going on. I had My dad died in 1979. I was 21 years old. I was basically raised by wolves, and that it kind of shows. Anyway, the guy that taught me how to fire, Eric Doty, who actually wound up at Railtown in the final years there, he taught me how to fire, and he took off. He and his dad helped build the O'Connor engines, the Golden Spike engines, and so he and his dad, they moved out to Utah. His dad did a job at the Golden Spike site, and Eric went to work for the Heaver. And the first engine I ever really got familiar with was the 36, unknowingly. I mean, I didn't know where I was going to wind up, but so my mom and I left my dad. We took a trip out to Utah, and we went to the Heaver to visit Eric, and Eric was running on the 36, and what a filthy railroad that was. I mean, even the crew would bring their own private rags from home because there was none in the shop. It was terrible. So my mom recounted to me, I'm in the cab, Mom's in the coach, we're coming back from Bridal Veil Falls, and the conductors, like asking this kid to keep his arms in because it's dangerous. And the kid goes, what about him? And so he looks forward, and I'm kneeling on the cab taking pictures. I'm taking pictures over the top of the cab. There's smiling John. Asbury Farm, cable cars, my boys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Googly eyes.
It was so much fun there, the whole environment, because we were all basically college age, it was just like, the energy was just so much fun. So anyway, there was this one band at Gordon, he bought Gordon bought the train wrecks book, the Reed book, and like, he was fascinated with boilers, how they could explode, and so he's like always asking us questions, well, what about this, what about that? And so knowing his penchant for, nervousness around boilers, we told him, well, if you ever see a couple, the engine crew running, don't ask questions. So anyway, this one time at shift change, there was a spare crew, so that the crew that got relieved just took off right past him, and he goes, whoa! It's like, let's go. Poor Gordon. Yeah, we have 1983, we've got this Crown locomotive, the Rider of the Blue Flame. What a piece it is. Anyway, I took this shop. This is our old shop down at Knott's. This is before they moved it inside the park. They had to do this expansion. And anyway, this actually I took this with a 300 millimeter lens from on top of the Sky Tower, which is only 235 feet up. One of my fun things was to, when we went over to ride maintenance, was ride the cabin up. There's a door on the inside where, there's a ladder that comes up, and you open the hatch. It's like, diamond plate. You open the hatch and you put it on maintenance mode, and you hit the up button. And I used to like standing over that hatch, watching the world go away. And so until at a certain point you start squirming, and then you close it. There's Wayne Penn giving a talk to some group down at the old shop.
Wow.
Typical day at the railroad. So then after I left Knott's Berry Farm, I briefly went up to Silverwood. I put in an application with the state, Dennis Doherty. Well, let's back up a little bit. So Dennis Doherty comes through. Knott's Berry Farm gave him his railroad, the 464, get it out of here when we're done with it. And so finally I found somebody that actually had knowledge, burners, valve gear, all the good stuff. I mean, this is a show answer man I ran into. And so I was asking him about valve gear, and he says, well, don't you have a copy of the exchange? And he goes, well, no, I don't. So is it still in print? And he goes, no, but there's, in the back of Trains Magazine, there's these guys that, you send them a self-addressed stamped envelope, and by golly, you'll get some, you'll find it. I got maniacal about that. I didn't even get a subscription to trains because it would show up at Hobby City the first of the month, way before you'd get it in the mail. So I stopped on my motorcycle on my way home, and like, yes, here it is. I got rider's cramp sometimes, just staying up. The last drop off was on Sunflower at midnight. I stuck my jacket right in my motorcycle over there. So anyway, long story short, a couple of years later, he comes through. His parents were living in Whittier. I had amassed a pretty good collection. And he comes, it's like, let's have lunch. He steps into my living room in Fountain Valley there, and he looks at my bookcase, he goes, he was stunned. He goes, what the, I don't even have this one. And where'd you get all these? Well, Dennis, in the back of Trains magazine, there's these guys. So anyway, I had applied for the state job, and the monkey, kicked it back. I really hate the word restoration. I just hate it with a passion. Because, what is a restoration? Tell me. It varies. Everybody thinks, a paint job and some new lettering makes it a restoration. I loathe the term. I really do. Anyway, so my first application got kicked back. I called Dennis, and he goes, well, you didn't use the right buzzword. Like, look at the description, just use those words. So I resubmitted, and it went through. Went up to Silverwood, Idaho. I was working for Gary Norton at the time. This is early spring of '89. Gary Norton, he runs the Silverwood theme park up there. Gary Norton's history was, he was working for Olivetti Business Systems and some other things, but electronics genius. One day this gentleman comes to him from Olivetti, from the bank he was working for, contract worker, and he goes, how about X, Y, and Z? He thought. So he turns the crank on it and, takes it to the Olivetti, and then go, well, that's pretty novel, but we're not interested. Well, he thought it had merit, so he developed it further, and he wound up selling that to Olivetti for $80 million. We call it the ATM. He invented the ATM. It's like, So anyway, then one morning the phone rang, and I came down for an interview. Everybody wanted a piece of me. There must have been eight people around the table, but the one thing that cemented my job was it was Dick Roy. He had a big background in he was the general manager of the Sierra at the time. His background was track maintenance, and so it was his around everybody's asking questions, and he comes to me and then he goes, so how do you find a split railhead? Well, we've been running an Osprey farm on some really, really, really old rail, and so I knew that. We've seen that defect before. We dealt with it. So I said, well, look for the dark spot, because if it's split, it pushes down to one side, and it doesn't hit the tread anymore. And he goes, well, how else? It's like, well, if you want, you can run your finger under it, find the sharp edge. And he leans back and goes, no further questions. That little tiny piece of information is like, okay, well, I'm not making myself up. This is the real deal, So anyway, so I got the job at the Sierra. It was really, really, really hot that first week. I'm like, started June 1st of 1989. It must have been 108 in the shade. I was living a couple weeks down in Jamestown at the Royal Hotel. It was the bathroom at the end of the hall, old school. But the night manager. He told me about natural bridges. There's myself and Wayne, one of our trips down there. But what a treasure! Now it's ruined because the social media got to it. But back then it was like we didn't know it went through. We went, the first time we went, I went through it just partially, by myself. And Wayne and I, we started seeing light on the other end. It's like in the middle you can tread water. It's that deep. And so, just to freak out Wayne. I'm in the middle and I go, whoa! It's like, what is it? I think it's a dead horse. Yeah, it was really hot. It was really, really hot. So Anyway, you know, knowing what I know now, back then I was a new guy, and, you know, Larry said, close set, you know, like no pictures, blah, 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 you know, like he was just adamant about it. So it was like, you know, it's like, knowing what I know now, I would have taken a lot more pictures. I don't have many pictures of Back to the Future at all, but I have a lot of stories. A lot of stories. You know, Christopher Lloyd's pretty packed. There's the old movie set out in the air. Yeah, it was, you know, it's, if it was still standing, we'd be sad for it. So I think it went out at the right time, I really do. I mean, those buildings were not built to last. You know, they were just molding into the dirt. So, you know, it's kind of good to have memories of, like, you know, what they used to be rather than watching it, you know, go in the toilet. But,
Very still mask.
You could have the state do a restoration of it.
So anyway, I got to blame my mechanical ability on, my dad had an airplane. In later years, he had an old Bonanza, 1949 Bonanza. So all my buddies were playing ball in the park on the weekends. I was out helping Dad wrench on the plane. You know, sometimes it was so hot, we'd take a bucket of water out for the tools. I remember this one time, you know, Dad sometimes had a short fuse, but just pissed off about something. He goes, "Oh, give me the vice grips." So I went to the toolbox, and I picked up the channel locks and the vice grips, and I was kind of confused which one it was. So I hold out the channel locks first, and he goes, "No, I said vice grips." And thankfully, I had the second one in my hand. It was okay. So the first steam engine I ever saw in the wild was down in Mississippi. I actually didn't see it. I just saw the steam and I heard the noise, and that was the Reader 1702 was going to Bay St. Louis for a movie with Robert Redford and Natalie Woods called "This Property is Condemned." That was the first wild steam engine I saw. It was pretty fun. Okay, let's look back to Knott's Farm a little bit. You know, we had so much fun running the engine there. This one night, this late 70s, running the engine. It's, you know, pretty scarce crowd in late 70s. These three couples, like, you know, we were hanging out. And this one long hair comes over to me and says, "Hey buddy," he's like, "You know, like ice cream." They come and start talking about the locomotive. He goes back to his room. And he comes back over to me and goes, "Hey buddy, is there a good place to smoke a joint around here?" I go, "Well, the graveyard's pretty dead." He goes, "Okay, thanks." And he's like, about halfway back to the group, he's like, play on words trying to get to him. Oh, yeah. A lot more, but I'll try to keep it short. Okay, here's the day after the fire. This is looking at the Main Street there. At the movie set. This is the depot on the left, and what really amazed me is, like, you walk in, everything like burned so completely. There was rows of nails for the boardwalks. I mean, it was like just like you know, they couldn't get any more, you know, exact. It's like, wow, look at that. It's like, this is the water tower frame. There's the high rail of the Sierra and that yellow Bronco. That looks like Back to the Future. I don't think it's part of the tracks. Oh yeah, that's another day at Jamestown. We used to have a wall of shame on one of the bulletin boards. You know, whenever somebody get a forklift stuck, out comes the camera. You know, this is Robert Anzar. but everybody had their chance to this. Remember this one time, Warren Smith, was like, I said, you know, you can move this pallet? It's like, yeah, I'll go get the Alice. And I go, so we went for the forklift, I went for the camera. So this is a crazy shoot. We took the shade down to Malpo State. This student had a film, his big project for his film college was to do this Western down at Malpo State. The only incident we had running at the time was the Shay, and he beat down the price with Stephen Drew, and finally Stephen Drew says, yeah, we'll do it. It's like, okay, where do you want it? Malpo State. You know, it only takes about 2 days to get there with the Shay. So anyway, we're on the engine, I mean, it's like in the middle of the summer, it's like freaking, it's pretty warm. And of course they have everybody in these old Western, get-ups and stuff. And so this one guy comes up in his old Western, wool jacket and stuff. Whoa, look, you guys are really hot up there. And I go, well, at least we're in the shade. Briscoe County Junior, we did that shoot there.
Yeah.
That's the pilot for the series there. So anyway, when I first got hired at Jamestown, we had Pat Patterson. Basically, Columbia had nothing to do with Jamestown. They wanted to wash their hands of it. So the volunteers took over after the Pacific Locomotive Association ended their contract. So they just gave them the keys. They were the curators. And so there's Al Bolander. His dad. His grandfather started a flagpole company in San Francisco. He's got a lot of tales about that down on 3rd Street, down the industrial area. They used to build makeshift masks, and this one morning, the funniest story was this one morning they were turning a mask, and they had some steady rests. They were, the mask was running out into the steady rests were on the sidewalk, and the mask was running out into the street, and it was blocked, into the street, and the job was taking a little longer than they thought, and here comes the first trolley of the morning, and his grandfather, got into a fist fight with the trolley driver. Get this thing out of my way. The other thing was there was a slaughterhouse down the street, and every once in a while, a glancing glow just makes a mad cow, and they'd run through their shop. It's like, oh, that's not good. There's Virgil, little Virgil. He was actually in this picture. They were doing a shoot for some fashion catalog. They had some old workwear they were trying to sell. So anyway, he got to be a model. He always said, "Don't let the bastard get you down." There's Al. So this is really interesting. Starting working at Jamestown. I mean, I working with Larry. He already had all the plates spinning. It's like he had mechanics, he had operators. It's like everything was already going. So I just stepped in sideways, and it took me a long time to a while to figure out what makes volunteers tick. But people aren't there for a paycheck. You better make them happy about being there. So anyway, what jogged my memory on this, on the right side, you see the Pullman green. The cars needed paint. We can go down to the local paint department, paint store up in Sonora, the old Dan's Distributing, and we're trying to match the Pullman green. Okay, well, there's many Pullman greens, but we're going through the fleet colors in the catalog, and on one of the pages, the fleet catalog, it says Pullman green, Dulux, 5502H. I mean, it's like, it's Alkyd, it's the old school, formula, but we had a snapshot of what a Pullman green was. I mean, I know Kyle would beg to differ, West Coast, East Coast, Mexican, or Aleutian.
Not a word.
You said nothing.
So this is the first winter I was there, we did the New Year's train. This is a Ted Benson image. He did set up some flash bulbs down there by Keystone. Yeah, it was, those New Year's trains, ever something else. The second car back is the baggage car. That was the dance car.
That's right.
The generator set up with the amps and all that stuff. I mean, and I tell people that many people in this county can trace their birth rights to these trains. Just saying. After Larry left, Al Lair started showing back up. Larry ran off a lot of good people, but Al Lair, what a character! He's doing a test run on his new high performance Volkswagen.
Oh, hell.
Okay, so early on, early 90s, I get a call from the state surplus people, and Bruce Casassa was starting a railroad operation out of Tuolumne, and got a couple of 45 tonners out of Utah, state surplus. You got two of them. They were down somewhere in Ceres or somewhere, Turlock, famous Turlock. Anyway, this gentleman calls me one morning and says, would you like a locomotive? I go, what you got? He's like, well, we got a couple of 45-ton locomotives. And I go, I know about them. What happened? He's like, well, they're not eligible to receive them. So we did this Sunday morning heist. We had a fast attack ramp. We had the thing loaded in like 30 minutes, and then Bruce shows up and then calls the cops, and finally we show him our paperwork, and we got the locomotive. So Monday morning, Suzanne Anderson's climbing through my bedroom window yelling at me. She's frothing at the mouth going, what did you just do? It's like, well, you gave me permission. It's like, yeah, gone in 30 seconds. So Dennis Doherty, he's got my possession at Sacramento. He's quite familiar with the system, and state surplus is gold. You get stuff, pennies on the dollar, the stuff you need, machine tools, forklifts, or whatever. And so I went to Suzanne and I said, we really need a forklift, because we were hiring the local lumberyard downtown Jamestown. We did enough, work for about an hour, it's like lined up for them. We'd give them $50, they come up the road and move our stuff and disappear. We need our own forklift, And so I went to Suzanne. It's like, we don't do surplus. We don't do surplus. Okay. Huh. And then I find out the backstory. A few years previous, this is from one of the old maintenance guys. A few years previous, somebody from Columbia went up this state surplus, and they picked up these nice bins, 6.5, 7 foot long, stainless steel. They got a lid on them, and so they took them to the shop, and they put wood around them, made them look like horse troughs. Okay, it's a historic Columbian age horse trough, and look, they don't leak anymore. Look at that, isn't that nice? And then one day a Vietnam vet mentions to one of the maintenance guys, you know what those are, right? No.
Yep.
That's what some of our boys came back in. So no wonder they didn't like surplus. What's that word? So anyway, fast forward to Rail Fair 91. That was a heck of a trip. We went up the Central California attraction. It's just no longer connected, but it was a Santa Fe move. They had business cars and had the number 7 caboose, and it was I couldn't find any. I mean, somewhere in my collection I have a picture, but it was quite the menagerie of the train. But, all the way up there on our own wheels. That was pretty fun. And that's where I met made connection with Dan Markoff and Krista Witt. I already knew, but it was a heck of an event. It was incredible. So the only thing I did for the number 3 to mark the event was I put these antlers on. I got at the swap meet, and the poor deer died in a hail of bullets. There's 2 bullet holes in them, but anyway. One of Larry's specials. If not to the standard, I guess. Here's O'Shaughnessy, the Iron Marshal. This is, I don't know why Larry had it in for Robert, but Larry and Fred Hemble, you know, they got grouchy whenever Robert was around, but, you know, okay, so he's 12 years old and you know, okay, so they looked in the state regs where, you know, you have to be 18 or have a parent or guardian with you, you know, to be on the property. And so his mom signed me up as his guardian. Violet, his grandmother, used to drop him off. And we just, so anyway, I think I'm still his guardian. So anyway, Larry really wanted a piece of him because, you know, Robert, he went to independent study to be part of this Shaughnessy, but they turned him into the principal, like, oh, he's skipping school. Like, no, he isn't. They really wanted a piece of him for some reason, but he turned out okay. Remember this, Robert? Save the smoke. Robert became an engineer for the Sierra. Well, look at that. He just told me recently that when he showed up at Wayman's trailer, his first job, Wayman sent him down to Yosemite Junction to buy him a pack of cigarettes. So Wayman had this construction trailer. It was just it was horrific. Down at Chinese, and it had the ever-burning ashtray. You know, it was like it never went out. You know, because he was a chain smoker. It was just horrific. It was just. So there was papers on the floor, and then, you know, the chairs would roll over. All these papers would throw on the floor. But yeah, he was quite a character, Wayman. But I started working for the Sierra on the dinner train, and you know, sometimes freight, whatever, but as required. And George Hardy, FRA guy, he's like Columbo. he kind of like, you know, like he's real reserved, and then they go, oh yeah, well, one last thing. I mean, he would, you think you're gonna pull one over? Don't even try. Don't. So anyway, he goes down one time to Lehman's box, and he's like, I'm just doing a little audit, you know, let's show the boss I'm working, like, turn in some paper today. Let's see your engineer files. It's like, okay. It's like, oh, I see you got George working. Yeah. Opens the file. Yeah, he's current. Yeah, check that on April 26th. Looks good. Close the file and say, let's see the train delay report for that day. So Wayman's looking. It's like, and George leans back and goes, you know, kind of hard to do a check ride without a train now, isn't it? He was just penciled it. But that's how George was. He would you know, like find a loose shingle and like hold it up and show it to you, and okay, next time, no. He always gave you a free one, but nobody's going to pull one over on him. Nobody. This is back in the good old days. Here's our track warrant. Wayman used to issue these general orders, like it's like, you know, killing a fly with a dog on a piece of dynamite. You know, that was Wayman. Here's Beau Lamore. That was who was doing the Shaughnessy. This is Louis Lamore's son. I think it failed, but. What is this? This is the Shaughnessy also. I always like to hang out with the pyrotechnic guys. You always learn something. Here's the Nels Canyon guys. There's Dennis Mann, Charlie Kranz, and I wish Charlie was here. Look at this kid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we were just starting to disassemble the three then. This would have been, what, 96-ish, I guess. Yeah, Charlie's in charge of BART now, the whole mechanical department. He's the chief there. Mighty Alco. That paint job was put on for a Chrysler commercial years ago down at between Warnersville and Cooperstown. They did this Chrysler commercial. It was pretty high dollar. They paved the road and had some stunt drivers driving these new minivans backwards at 40 miles an hour. They filmed it in reverse so the helicopter wouldn't hit the locomotive. So, interesting. There's Lehman's box. Pretty bad. There's John McCoy. I'm not sure who's standing next to him.
Brief time when nothing was painted in those colors.
I really like this shot. This is my stealth mode on the number 3. we were cleaning out the tender. We done some cleaning. And I uncoupled the 45 tender off of it just for the shot. Hey, we know how to have fun. So everybody wants to know what kind of shape the 3 was in before it got restored. You know, I got to tell you, it was pretty sad. Okay. It got better.
A little bit of restoration.
So here's where the love-hate relationship started. Everybody loves the shade, but the shade doesn't always love you. It's not always a good relationship.
Wow.
Well, there's the alcoves that we had to choose from down at Concord. I'm sorry these are all jumbled up, but you just have to get used to it. That Dodge truck, that was part of the budget change proposal. That came with my job, so that was always known as George's truck. This Joe Nimmer, Dennis Doherty, don't you know? We were up in Sacramento turning the drivers on we did the journals of the drivers, spring reading, all kinds of stuff. We've done so much over the years. But, they had a tracer attachment on this big lathe. It's not a heavy duty lathe, it's just a big one. So it's not real rigid, but it does jog. There's a little stylus that air power that goes in and out and traces your contour for you. There's a knuckle we replaced in the 28 years ago. Robert Franzen down at the Grand Canyon made us a new one for the 28. So years ago, this is, I want to say 95 for the 96. Anyway, for the Golden Spike celebration, got out there for, Eric was working there and his dad. So anyway,
yes.
we're
I remember that. Kyle? Yes, I do. Remember that?
So we're out by Morton Tire Call. We're walking the old right-of-way. It's not the Golden Spike site, but it's the old South Pacific right-of-way. So we had a gang of people there. It was Kyle and Kurt and a couple more people. So I ducked down over the side to take a leak, and I found this brake wheel. And so I rinse it off in it was all muddy, but I rinse it off in what water was down there, get the mud off of it. And so I go, guys, check it out. And I hand it to Kurt. And I goes, where'd you find that? Down there, it was peeing right on it. If I wasn't peeing right on it, I wouldn't have found it. He goes, thanks. A long time ago. So on one of these beats, I think it was 96. Anyway, they had a hard time getting their air compressor going. So I get up there. Okay, I'm the on-duty mechanic, so the reversing valve was stuck. And so I get a pair of small vice grips, and as gingerly as I could, I grabbed the reversing rod and start wiggling it, oiling it, wiggling it, trying to get it loose, because it was dry and it rusted over the winter. And I'm trying to be as gentle as I can with it. And who would walk up with the guy that built it? This is Chad O'Connor. And I look down and I go, I'm sorry. And he goes, don't worry about it. It's like you got to do what you got to do. It's like, because, the pair of ice grips on a nicely machined surface, it's like, but he gave me a get out of jail card. Well, unfortunately, this isn't going to play either. I got to learn more about this. But anyway, this is a chicken video. Okay, now on to the Shay. Now here we go. Love-hate relationship. Love-hate. So Larry had it on one of the New Year's trains, early 90s. The 3 and the 28, took it down, and then the train's going to take it up. Well, how far we're going, and Larry's running it, and he's not. Anyway, right past Reservoir Road there, it slips. I mean, it was a heavy train, but it just lights up. Don Shakarian and Patrick Carnahan were both on the ground right at the intersection because they know that's where the grade starts, and they wanted to see the action. They said there were sparks, rings of sparks around all the drivers. It was like, oh my goodness! I'll never forget every little wisp of steam in the cab was rocketing towards the peephole at that point. I don't know what kind of RPM Larry was turning, but it was incredible. It was just. Finally, he shut it off, and then he looks down and he blames Don Shakarian and Patrick Carnahan. You guys, greased the track or whatever. No. So the next morning, Larry turned it into Mel Kush, the Ranger, and the Ranger, he gets a hold of me, emailed us, and we walk out there, and he goes, George, you think there was a crime committed here? And I go, the only crime committed here was the way Larry was running the engine. Yeah, sometimes we'd have 2 locomotives going, it was kind of neat. Sometimes. Sometimes there was poppies. Sometimes there's shades.
No smoking king.
Here we go. Good memories. So anyway, sometimes the shale will just decide to turn on you. One morning we're inspecting it. The center plate broken, the middle one. I didn't like that. Didn't like it much at all. So anyway, you get out the air jacks, you got to build a big old bridge inside the pit for the right jack, and the right jack has to fit on the frame because the engine's offset. It was most of the weight's on the right jack. It was it made me nervous anyway. But I don't know who that poor guy is under there. I think I know. Yeah, what a pain. There's beep. So once we got it apart, there's what it looked like. It had been repaired before. Somebody did a weld on it years ago, but no weld into it anymore. Yeah, that was a real interesting one. But, who's the lucky man that has a long enough arms to operate both jacks at the same time? Well, I guess that would be me. That was difficult. That was, I didn't like it at all. Yeah, people just show up to work, it was just, when you're behind the 8 ball, that's how it was. I mean, I never had to make a phone call to call anybody, it's like this, people just showed up. It was pretty neat. Just another day. Run the shade. So the shades, like I said, it's a love-hate relationship, but sometimes we have a special and then would break down and had to run the next day. And remember this all-night, it was back in the Larry days, this all-nighter we pulled to get it going. Spin a crosshead wedge or something, I forget what it was, but anyway, we're all, asked to run tomorrow. We got a lot of paid passengers that need to ride. So we're up till, midnight. And then we had the radio on just to keep, things going. And this Amtrak jingle comes on. And this woman has music. This woman, singing. There's something magic about a train. And this pall of numbness just settled over me, and I go, no, there's nothing magic about a train. Nothing. It's just, no. Yeah, there's a lot of work over the years, and then just to have some English company, pay the money to embarrass the world with it. So this company comes over from England, and they decided to do this transcontinental railroad thing. So they dolled it up with brass handrails, this tape, and put a pilot on it. And they painted it red one day, and then the next day they made it blue, and then faced it the other way so they could do their magic. What a waste of money! Quite embarrassing. Oh, the Alco, yeah, I got the steam generator going on it for the New Year's train. It was kind of neat. The only thing I can compare it to is a 1952 TV set, controlling a steam cleaner. It's fun, learning this stuff. It's just really neat. Got all the manuals and got it going. The steam heat on the cars. We froze our asses off. I want to say it was 90. Anyway, it was really bad, really bad. So we decided to get the steam heat going. So of course the 28's got steam heat on it as well as the 3, and then the Alco also. But the steam heat systems are amazingly bulletproof. They're just they're designed to digest rust. They're well designed. The only pain is, the conduits, hacking those together and then breaking them apart. But with a little, coil and, keeping them lubed up, they operate pretty good. Here's our long distance 45 tonner. It's got the extra fuel capacity. This was the 18 and the 28 double heading. That was the PLA special we did years ago. We got to use the line. I think that might have been the last time we used it. Yeah, that was a fine trip. There's the glory work. Yep. Need people like that. Isn't that a beautiful sight? I'm telling you what, man. Alco in the roundhouse. I know it's blasphemy for some, but get over it. Here's my lineup. Okay, so the 65 tonner, the phone rang one morning. It was the state guy down in Riverbank. The federal guy down in Riverbank says, you're the closest recipient, would you like a 65 tonner? And I go, yeah. Yes, I go, well, it's not running, but, we can fill out some paper and we can get it up to you. So, okay. So, the Sierra only charged, $1,500 to ship it. I got in big trouble for that because Kathy Taylor, at the time, it's like, I don't like paying the railroad, arch enemy railroad,
Yeah.
And I go, Kathy, I can't mobilize a truck and a team and ramp that thing or crane it and get it up to Jamestown for $1,500. Think about it, this is a bargain. And then she still got grouchy. So anyway, so it shows up at Jamestown, and my buddy Mike Madler over at Heber, he had one of them. There's two versions. There's the unrebuilt, rebuilt. This was rebuilt in '94, and got all new electrical. It was pretty impressive. New engine. I go, Mike, you you got a manual? I need to, get a manual for this so we can get her going. He goes, what's your email? And 323 pages of PDF, right to my mailbox. It's like, oh my goodness, I guess we're done with paper now, because I was always so used to the paper, but that was really neat. So Stan Eddy took that under his wing and got that going. We had to rebuild the auxiliary generator, and that was a Westinghouse generator. I had to find the right brushes for it and stuff. But Stan got it going. It's pretty neat. Well, this is up in Sacramento. We're doing the journals and the drivers. 28. And the journals. So I can't tell you what year it was, but we had a superheater element have a pinhole leak in it. So that turned was Norm Warren and Jerry loose on it, and simple for remove and replace. And tightening it back up, they used a nice cheater bar on it and snapped the header, unfortunately. Well, okay, what are you gonna do? I mean, it's broken. So Lockett sits down in Turlock. They're the cast iron people. They do cast iron welding. They basically raise with cast iron filter rod. So I give them a call. So it's like, okay, well, no, do you have the piece that broke off? Yes. It's like, well, get it down to us. We'll see if we can weld to it. And they told me that two things kills cast iron. It's age and oil. Those things could be the death knell of your cast iron. So he was successfully able to weld to us and said, okay, bring it down. And so I took down the whole header in but anyways, I took down the header in an S10 pickup. I didn't pick it up in the S10 pickup. Hell, look at that. So anyway, but in removing the doggone header, these are the things you never think about. Out of sight, out of mind. The dry pipe looked like this. It was delaminating. This is what left of one of the rivets. They look like a telephone book on the end. This is after we got it out. A lot of the pieces are missing, but I've heard about dry pipe failures before, and there's not a whole lot you can do when the throttle's wide open. You better be, have somebody in the cab, because bad things are going to happen. So anyway, we got a new dry pipe out of the deal too. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise. I mean, it wasn't a fatal flaw, breaking the superheater header, but by golly, we found the dry pipe defect.
That would have been.
Oh, it's a typical day on the sea. There's the purple gang. Jeff Schwab, he's the general manager of Richmond Pacific now. One of the Now's guys. This is on the Eureka. This is on my days off. I wear sandals.
Steel toe shoes.
So on Sundays I come down. My regular days off are Sundays and Mondays, and sometimes I come down on Sunday just to check in on the boys. Sometimes. Sometimes we play with some other stuff. This is Mike Perdina. We were taking a train up over to. We actually had the album on the front. On the heavy train, going up Chinese, and we disconnected it on the fly at the top. Here's Mike Perdina. He started on the railroad in 1952. He ran steam. His favorite was the 24. He said it was really, really thirsty, but it was a good engine. They scrapped it to 55. Mike Perdina recounted to me years ago that they'd go as far as they could with their freight with the 24, and somewhere in the Red Hills, the injector would break, they'd tie down their train, they'd run up to Quinn's and top off, and go back down for their train. It's like, wow. And whenever we were working together, I'd always ask him, you know, he had kind of a gravelly voice and say, hey, Mike, well, what's that, George? It's like, how many trips you think she got left in her? Well, a few more. It's like, well, no half trips, right? No. It's like, okay, I don't want to walk. Parting in the Red Seas with Moses. Like McReynolds. This isn't a very high quality image, this next one, but I have the slide. It didn't carry over well, but the turbo on the 42 was gone. So it looked like a steam engine standing out. It was pretty impressive. Yeah, that was a good one. So, okay, so Castle Rail Town. This is Mama Kitty. She was born in one of the blackjacks. Good cat.
Rodent control.
Here's Bob. Bob had a abscess on his tail, and so the vet decided to take off the tail rather than treat with antibiotics, so hence the name Bob. Bob liked to play on the tracks. 18 in the Plymouth. Number 18. There's my first cat, Hershey. That was I was there like the 2 weeks, and this cat's hanging around, and I start petting it. One of the volunteers goes to the store, gets cat food, cat box, cat litter, cat toys. She says, George, take the cat. I did. It's just kind of, I always kept cat food in the warehouse, the office, you know, just for travelers. If I could lure them to stick around, I would. And sometimes when the Sierra was short of power, we'd sub in the Alpha. That was the Chrysler paint job, Chrysler commercial we made. Sometimes we'd have visiting locomotives come to the turntable for whatever. Here's the Aflac commercial. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see the final product. This is during the shoot. It was a great shoot. Very professional, and we finally got it down to a science how to work with the film crews. They're all different. They all have their own ideas, and so what we wound up arriving at was having the agreement where there's only one point of contact. You know, nobody talks to my crew. You talk to my guy, and on this shoot it was Joe Bispo. That's the only guy you can talk to. So Joe would like understand what they needed, and then he would come to us and say, okay, this is what they want. But some of these shoots just are so sideways where people are, you know, crossing their wires and trying to, you know, tell us what to do, and it's quite difficult. So yeah, it worked out really good. These guys, the key guys in the shot, in the shoot, the camera guys, the tech guys, they're into large-scale submarines. They do these lake war games with video cameras. I mean, there's just like, really? And they hunt each other on lakes with submarines. They're all based out of Georgia. So we kind of saved their butt on this. They wanted to do a rollover of the train, you know, chasing it, and they're setting the camera between the rails, and I go, hell, not so quick here. And so it turns out the linkage on the caboose would have clobbered it, so we set it out for them. So this is one of the duck puppets. You know, they use blue screen, you know, for that's what the tapes for, but they're all manipulated, and it's so crazy that okay, it takes two guys to handle it with just the manual controls, and then another guy does the beak and blinks the eye. It's the darndest thing. It's like wow. That's it. Yeah, it was one of the funnest shoots I've ever been on, but you know how, we were down there, it was a 3-day shoot, it was great people, they put us up on this, the Holiday Inn, and they had to get us to ODR 30 to fire up the engine and be on spot when they needed us, so we didn't get the usual craft services like everybody else did, so they took us to this really nice roach coach, and I'm having coffee one morning with Warren Smith, we're waiting for our breakfast burritos, and Warren goes, man, this is some fine coffee, nice and hot, rich. And I go, within earshot of the owner there, I go, well, yeah, these modern rigs, they run the exhaust through the coffee urn to keep it really hot. And the guy goes, they do not. So on the shoot, Mike Edwards was our pilot. Now, he picked up at Chinese. He had this. Okay, I'm a prankster. I get it from my dad. I missed that part of my notes, but I have the prank gene. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. So my dad was invited to this dinner party years ago. This was in the 60s, and this guy's showing off a brand new TV set. Here's the name of Grizzly. That was their favorite one. Showing off this TV set, it was hi-fi, stuff, little cocktail party, and Dad thought he was a little more proud of it than he should be, and so Dad, he got a couple of guys to chip in, and they all took out a classified ad, his numbers, his TV, really cheap, on the next holiday weekend. No answering machines back then. It's like, no, it's not for sale. So, there you have it.
That's good.
Sundown in my career, riding off into the sunset. Those are my cat ears. And that's it.
Thank you.